Park Hyun stood in the middle of the huge room. His hands were locked in metal cuffs behind his back. Above him, strange beings sat on floating platforms that moved slowly around in a circle. Their eyes watched him like he was some kind of dangerous animal. The room was cold and white. Everything glowed with a soft blue light that made Hyun's skin look pale. He had been standing here for 3 hours now, listening to aliens speak about him in their weird clicking and buzzing languages. A small device in his ear turned their words into human speech, but it did not make them sound any less angry. "The human has shown complete disregard for safety," said Ambassador Nixavar. The tall, green-scaled alien pointed one of his forearms at Hyun. "His actions on Kepler 442b put millions of lives at risk. The volcanic activity he caused could have destroyed 3 cities. Hyun wanted to laugh, but he kept his face calm. The volcanic activity had been small. On Earth, people would have called it a minor earthquake. But these aliens lived on worlds with perfect weather and soft ground. To them, any ground movement was like the end of the world. "I followed all safety rules," Hyun said when the translator device let him speak. The seismic readings were within normal limits for human standards. The evacuation was just a safety measure. Human standards. Nixavar's voice rose higher. "Your species comes from a world of constant disasters. You think earthquakes and storms are normal. But civilized beings do not live with such dangers." The judge, a being made of what looked like living crystal, raised one hand. The room became quiet. Judge Veltaran had been alive for over 1,000 years, and had seen many species come before the Galactic Council. But humans were still new to them, still strange and hard to understand. "Park Hyun of Earth." The judge's voice sounded like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "You have been found guilty of reckless endangerment. Your terraforming work caused panic among the civilian population of 3 worlds. While no lives were lost, your actions showed a dangerous lack of care for others." Hyun had worked on Kepler 442b for 2 years. The planet was supposed to become a new home for refugees from the Centauri system. But the local aliens had very specific ideas about what made a world safe to live on. They wanted perfectly flat ground, no weather changes, and no geological activity at all. They wanted to build their cities in places that would be boring even by human standards. When Hyun's deep drilling had triggered some minor volcanic activity, the aliens had acted like he had set off nuclear bombs. They evacuated entire continents. They called in emergency response teams. They treated a few small lava flows like they were the end of civilization. "The defendant will face punishment," Judge Veltaran continued, "but the council is merciful. We do not believe in taking life even for serious crimes." Hyun felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Aliens who called themselves merciful often had punishments that were worse than death. "The human will be exiled to Tartarus 7, the judge announced. The room erupted in buzzing and clicking sounds. Even with the translator, Hyun could tell the aliens were shocked. Some of them sounded almost scared. Hyun had never heard of Tartarus 7, but from the way the aliens reacted, it was not a nice place. He watched as several of the council members moved their platforms closer together, speaking in quick, nervous voices. Ambassador Nixavar looked satisfied in the way only reptiles could. His cold yellow eyes stared at Hyun with what might have been pleasure. "A fitting punishment," he said. "The human wants to live dangerously. Let him see how dangerous the universe can truly be." "What is Tartarus 7? Hyun asked. Judge Veltaran's crystal form seemed to dim slightly. "It is a world at the edge of our space. High gravity, violent weather, predatory life forms. The atmosphere is toxic to most species. The plant life produces acid. The ground itself tries to kill anything that walks on it. It is a death world," Nixvar added with what sounded like satisfaction. "No civilized being has ever survived there for more than a few days. You will have basic supplies, enough food and water for perhaps a week. After that," he made a gesture that needed no translation. The other council members seemed uncomfortable with this punishment, but none of them spoke against it. Hyun realized they saw this as a slow, merciful death rather than a quick execution. "The sentence is final," Judge Veltaran said. "Transport will depart in 6 hours." As the guards moved to take him away, Hyun heard some of the aliens talking among themselves. They thought he could not understand their languages without the translator, but Hyun had learned some of their words during his years working in space. "Poor creature," said one, "to die alone on such a terrible world." "At least it will be quick," said another. "Nothing survives long in that gravity and poison air." I heard the predators there can bite through metal, added a third. The human will not suffer for long. Hyun almost smiled as the guards led him through the corridors of the space station. These aliens lived on worlds where the weather was controlled by machines, where dangerous animals had been removed long ago, where even the plants were engineered to be safe and pretty. They had no idea what humans were capable of. Hyun remembered camping trips with his father in the Australian outback when he was a child. He remembered the heat that could kill unprepared people in hours, the snakes and spiders that could drop a grown man with one bite, the storms that came without warning and turned dry creek beds into raging rivers. He remembered learning to find water in the desert, to read the signs of dangerous weather, to respect the land without fearing it. His father had taught him that Earth was not trying to kill humans. Earth was just being Earth. It was up to humans to learn how to live with it. Tartarus 7, Hyun said quietly to himself as they locked him in a holding cell. Sounds like a vacation. The guard, a small furry alien, looked at him with what might have been pity. I am sorry, human. I have heard stories of your homeworld. They say it is a beautiful place with gentle rains and soft breezes. Hyun laughed, surprising the guard. Earth, gentle? He thought of hurricanes and earthquakes, of deserts and Arctic winters, of volcanoes and tsunamis. Friend, if you think Earth is gentle, then maybe Tartarus 7 will feel like paradise. The guard walked away, shaking his head. Another crazy human, driven mad by the thought of his coming death. But Hyun was not mad. He was planning. The transport ship dropped Hyun on Tartarus 7 like he was a piece of garbage. The alien crew would not even land properly. They hovered 20 feet above the ground and pushed him out with a small parachute. The ship was gone before his feet touched the dirt. Hyun hit the ground hard and rolled. The gravity was heavy, like wearing a backpack full of rocks. Each step took more effort than normal. But it was not impossible. He had trained in high-gravity chambers before. This felt like running with ankle weights. The sky above him was dark green, filled with thick clouds that rumbled with constant thunder. The air smelled like metal and sulfur. In the distance, he could see mountains that glowed red at their peaks. Everything looked alien and hostile. Perfect. A small floating robot had been dropped with him. It activated as soon as Hyun stood up, its lights blinking as it scanned the area. The robot spoke in a pleasant female voice that seemed very out of place on this deadly world. Hello, Park Hyun. I am Arya, your survival assistance unit. I am programmed to help you survive as long as possible on this planet. The robot paused. My estimates suggest you have between 2 and 4 days before the environment kills you. I am sorry. Thanks for the encouragement, Hyun said, looking around. The ground was covered in strange plants that looked more like metal sculptures than living things. Some of them had sharp edges that caught the dim light. Others seemed to move slightly when he was not looking directly at them. Warning, Arya said. Atmospheric analysis shows toxic levels of sulfur compounds and heavy metals. The local plant life produces corrosive acids. Gravity is 1.4 times standard. I recommend immediate shelter construction. As if the planet wanted to prove Arya right, it started to rain. But this was not water falling from the sky. The drops hissed when they hit the ground and small wisps of smoke rose where they landed. Acid rain. Hyun pulled up the hood of his environmental suit and looked for shelter. About 50 meters away, there was an outcropping of black rock that formed a small cave. He started walking toward it, his legs working hard against the heavy gravity. Something howled in the distance. Then something else answered from a different direction. The sounds were not like any earth animal. They were deeper, angrier, hungrier. Predator activity detected, Arya announced helpfully. Large life forms approaching from multiple directions. I recommend running. Where? Hyun asked, still walking steadily toward the cave. This whole planet wants to eat me. Might as well pick a good spot to make my stand. He reached the cave just as the first predator came into view. It was the size of a small car, with 6 legs and what looked like metal plates covering its body. Its mouth opened to show rows of teeth that could bite through steel. Acid drool dripped from its jaws and sizzled on the ground. The creature charged at him with surprising speed. Hyun dove into the cave just as its claws scraped against the rock where he had been standing. Hexapod predator, Arya said, floating safely inside the cave. Native to this world. Capable of digesting most known materials. Extremely aggressive. Survival probability against one specimen is 12%. Only 12%? Hyun asked, catching his breath. You really know how to make a guy feel confident. The creature outside was sniffing around the cave entrance, trying to figure out how to get inside. Its 6 legs clicked against the rock as it moved. Every few seconds it would stick its head toward the cave opening and make a sound like a steam engine mixed with a buzzsaw. Hyun opened his supply pack. The aliens had given him 3 days of food, some basic tools, and a small energy weapon that was probably meant to let him die fighting, rather than die helplessly. He pulled out the weapon and checked its power level. 1 full charge, maybe 20 shots. Area, he said. What do you know about these hexapods? They hunt in packs of 3 to 5. They have excellent hearing and smell, but poor eyesight. Their armor plating is resistant to most weapons, but they have soft spots at the joints. They typically attack by surrounding their prey. As if summoned by her words, more howls echoed from outside. The first hexapod answered, and soon Hyun could hear the clicking of multiple sets of claws on rock. 4 more specimens detected, Arya announced. Survival probability is now down to 2%. Good thing I never listened to statistics, Hyun said. He studied the cave more carefully. It was deeper than he had first thought, with several passages leading further into the rock. The walls were smooth, carved by years of acid rain, but they were solid. The creatures outside were big, but the cave entrance was narrow, 1 at a time, he thought. That's how you handle multiple opponents. Hyun found a piece of loose rock about the size of his fist. He threw it out of the cave entrance, and it clattered on the ground outside. Immediately, all 5 hexapods rushed toward the sound, their claws scrambling for position. While they were distracted, Hyun slipped out of the cave from a different angle. The creatures had their backs to him, focused on the spot where the rock had landed. He raised his weapon and aimed at the soft joint where one creature's back leg met its body. The energy beam cut through the joint like a hot knife through butter. The hexapod screamed and fell, its leg no longer working. The others spun around looking for their attacker, but Hyun was already moving. He rolled behind a large boulder as claws and teeth struck the spot where he had been. Another shot took out a second creature's front leg. Then a third shot missed as the remaining hexapods learned to dodge. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, 3 hexapods were dead and 2 had limped away into the distance. Hyun was exhausted. His suit was torn in several places and he had used 15 of his 20 energy shots. Incredible, Arya said, her mechanical voice somehow managing to sound amazed. You have achieved a 0.1% probability outcome. How did you know their weak spots? Everything has weak spots, Hyun said, breathing heavily. You just have to look for them. He dragged one of the dead hexapods back to the cave. Its meat might be poisonous to most aliens, but humans had been eating things that should kill them for thousands of years. He just needed to cook it properly. The hexapod tasted like a cross between crab and chicken, with a slightly metallic aftertaste. It was actually pretty good once he got used to it. The meat was high in protein and seemed to give him energy. His body processed it without any problems. This should not be possible, Arya said, watching him eat. The toxin levels in that creature should kill any carbon-based life form. Humans are hard to kill, Hyun said between bites. We evolved eating everything from poisonous fish to fermented fruit. A little alien meat isn't going to stop us. Over the next few days, Hyun established a routine. The cave became his base camp. He learned to predict when the acid rain would fall by watching the color of the clouds. He discovered that the metal plants could be harvested for tools if you knew how to handle them safely. The smaller creatures that lived in the rocks were actually friendly once you fed them a few times. By the end of the first week, Hyun had expanded his cave into a comfortable living space. He had a steady food supply from hexapod hunting and plant gathering. He had tamed 2 of the small rock creatures to serve as early warning systems for predator attacks. He had even figured out how to collect and purify the acid rain for drinking water. Your survival time has exceeded all projections, Arya reported. Current estimates suggest you could survive here for several months, possibly longer. Months? Hyun said, looking out at the harsh landscape that was starting to feel like home. Arya, I think I'm going to like it here. The robot's lights blinked in what might have been confusion. But this is a death world. Nothing is supposed to survive here. That's what makes it interesting, Hyun said. Back home, we call places like this vacation spots. He patted one of his small rock creature companions on what might have been its head. It made a happy purring sound and curled up next to him. Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky and acid rain began to fall again. Paradise. 6 months had passed since Hyun's exile, and Tartarus 7 had become more than just a place to survive. It had become home. His small cave had grown into a complex of connected chambers carved deeper into the rock. He had gardens growing in protected areas where the acid rain could not reach. His 2 rock creatures had multiplied into a small family that helped guard his territory. He was working on expanding his water collection system when Arya's warning lights started flashing red. Multiple spacecraft approaching, the robot announced. 3 vessels military configuration. They will arrive in approximately 10 minutes. Hyun stopped his work and looked up at the dark green sky. Sure enough, 3 bright dots were growing larger as they descended through the clouds. They were not council ships. The design was wrong, too angular and aggressive. Pirates, Hyun said, recognizing the ship types. Or salvagers. Probably came looking for my body and whatever equipment they could steal. He gathered his gear quickly and moved to a hidden observation point in the rocks. His rock creatures scattered to their hiding places, understanding that danger was coming. After 6 months of living with him, they had learned to read his moods and respond accordingly. The ships landed in a triangle formation near his old cave entrance. Armored figures emerged from each vessel, weapons ready. Hyun counted 12 aliens total, representing at least 4 different species. The leader was tall and heavily muscled, with 4 arms and dark blue skin. Captain Rextar, if Hyun remembered correctly from old wanted posters. Spread out, Rextar ordered his crew. Find the humans' remains and any salvageable equipment. This should be quick. One of the aliens, an insect-like creature with multiple eyes, pointed toward Hyun's cave complex. Captain, these formations are not natural. Someone has been modifying the rock structure. Impossible, Rextar said, but he motioned for his crew to investigate. The human should have died months ago. Even if he survived the first week, the seasonal storms would have finished him. As if the planet had been listening, the sky began to darken further. The clouds started moving in patterns that Hyun had learned to recognize. A big storm was coming. Not just acid rain this time, but one of the massive electrical storms that could tear apart anything not properly sheltered. The salvage crew entered his cave complex, weapons raised and sensors scanning. Hyun could hear them talking as they explored his expanded living space. These walls have been carved with precision tools, one of them said. And look at these water collection channels. Someone has been living here, the human, another voice asked. But how is that possible? Rextar's voice cut through the others. I don't care how it's possible. If the human is still alive, he's a witness to our operations. Find him and eliminate him. The storm was getting closer. Hyun could feel the electrical charge building in the air. His rock creatures were all hidden deep in their burrows, waiting for the danger to pass. Soon the lightning would start and anything caught outside would be fried instantly. He made a decision. Hello? Hyun called out, stepping into view with his hands raised. You're looking for me, I assume. 12 weapons immediately pointed at him. Rextar stepped forward, his 4 eyes studying Hyun with obvious disbelief. You're the human who was exiled here, Rextar said. It was not a question. How are you still alive? Clean living and good exercise, Hyun replied. Also, the local food is better than you might expect. Thunder crashed overhead, much closer now. The first electrical discharges were beginning to dance between the clouds. Rextar's crew looked nervous, but they kept their weapons trained on Hyun. Sir, the insect-like alien said urgently, my sensors are detecting extreme electrical activity. We should return to the ships. In a moment, Rextar said. He studied Hyun more carefully. You've been living here for 6 months. In this environment, how? Practice, Hyun said simply. Look, I can answer all your questions, but right now we have a bigger problem. See those clouds? In about 5 minutes, this whole area is going to be hit by lightning strikes that will cook you inside your armor. My cave complex has been designed to handle these storms. Your ships haven't. Another massive thunder crack split the air. This time they could see the lightning dancing between the cloud layers. The electrical charge in the air was making everyone's hair stand up. He's lying, one of Rextar's crew said. Trying to trick us into a trap. No trap, Hyun said. Just physics. Those clouds are charged with enough electricity to power a city. When they discharge, everything metal in a 5-kilometer radius becomes a lightning rod. Including your ships. Including your armor. The first bolt struck nearby, hitting a metal outcropping and turning it white-hot in an instant. The thunder that followed was deafening. Rextar's crew jumped, their weapons wavering. Captain, the insect alien said, his multiple eyes wide with fear. The human is correct. The electrical readings are off the scale. We need shelter immediately. Rextar hesitated for a moment, clearly not wanting to trust Hyun. But another lightning strike, closer this time, made the decision for him. "Move," he ordered his crew. "Into the caves. But keep weapons ready." Hyun led them deeper into his complex, to the chambers he had carved specifically for storm protection. The walls here were thick and lined with materials that would disperse electrical charges safely. He had learned about lightning protection the hard way during his first major storm on the planet. As they settled into the storm shelter, the real fury began outside. Lightning struck continuously, turning the world outside into a chaos of light and sound. The thunder was constant, a rolling roar that seemed to shake the entire planet. "How long will this last?" Rextar asked, his previous hostility replaced by nervous concern. 3 days usually, Hyun replied, settling comfortably against one wall. "Sometimes 4 if it's a really big one. This looks like a big one." The aliens stared at him in disbelief. 3 days trapped in a cave on a Deathworld with a human they had planned to kill. The irony was not lost on any of them. 3 days, Rextar repeated. "And you've survived storms like this before?" 17 of them, Hyun said. "You learned to prepare? Food, water, entertainment?" He gestured to a stack of books he had made from processed plant fibers. "Care for something to read?" Over the next 3 days, something strange happened. The salvage crew, trapped in close quarters with Hyun, began to see him not as a target or a witness, but as a person. He shared his food with them when their rations ran low. He told them stories about Earth and his life before exile. He treated their minor injuries with medicines he had developed from local plants. When the storm finally ended, Rexatar's crew was no longer talking about killing him. "I don't understand," Rexatar said as they prepared to leave. "This world should have killed you in days. Instead, you've built a home here. You're thriving. Different species, different definitions of dangerous," Hyun replied. "Your people come from safe worlds where everything is controlled and predictable. My people come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to adapt." The insect alien, who had introduced himself as Engineer Killmoth, gestured toward Hyun's complex setup. "The water purification system, the lightning protection, the food storage. You've essentially terraformed this cave system." "Not terraformed," Hyun corrected. "Adapted. I didn't try to make this place like Earth. I learned to live with it as it is." As Rextar's crew boarded their ships to leave, the captain paused at the entrance to Hyun's cave. "The council thinks they sent you here to die," Rextar said. "But they actually gave you a kingdom, didn't they?" Hyun looked out over his domain. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and charged with energy. His rock creatures were emerging from their burrows, happy to see that the danger was over. In the distance, he could see hexapods beginning their evening hunt, now avoiding his territory through hard-learned respect. "Not a kingdom," Hyun said, "just home." After the ships departed, Arya floated over to him. Her lights blinking, and what he had learned was her version of confusion. Their behavior pattern changed completely during the storm, she observed. From hostile to respectful. "How did you accomplish this?" "I showed them hospitality," Hyun said simply. "Even here, even under these conditions, sometimes the best way to defeat enemies is to make them friends. By surviving impossibly harsh conditions with grace and kindness," Arya said. "Is this a common human strategy?" Hyun smiled as one of his rock creatures rubbed against his leg like a cat. "It's the only strategy that matters." The story of the human who survived Tartarus 7 spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Rextar's crew, despite their criminal backgrounds, could not stop talking about what they had seen. The footage from their suit cameras showed impossible things. A human wrestling with predators twice his size, growing food in acid rain, and building sophisticated technology from materials that most species considered worthless junk. Dr. Yim Sora was the first legitimate scientist to arrive at Tartarus 7. Her research ship landed 3 months after Rextar's visit, carrying equipment to study what the academic community was calling the Tartarus phenomenon. Hyun greeted her at his landing area, which had grown into a proper spaceport, complete with marked landing zones and basic maintenance facilities. He was riding one of the larger hexapods he had domesticated, treating the massive predator like a friendly horse. "Dr. Park Hyun, I presume," Sora said, stepping carefully out of her environmental suit. She was a small woman with quick, intelligent eyes that took in every detail of his settlement. "I'm Dr. Yim Sora, xenobiologist from Seoul University. I've come to document your survival strategies. Welcome to New Paradise, Yun said, climbing down from his hexapod mount. The creature nuzzled his shoulder affectionately before wandering off to graze on some metal plants. Though I'm thinking of changing the name. Maybe something with more style. Sora stared at the hexapod as it moved away. That creature could bite through battleship armor. You were riding it like a pet. Razor here is actually quite gentle once you establish dominance and prove you can provide food, Hyun explained. Most predators are just trying to survive, same as anything else. Show them respect and set clear boundaries, and they'll work with you. As Hyun gave her a tour of his settlement, Sora documented everything with scientific precision. The water purification systems that turned acid rain into drinking water, the food gardens that thrived in toxic soil, the domesticated creatures that should have been trying to kill him. The technology built from materials that her instruments said were completely useless. This shouldn't be possible, Sora muttered, taking readings from one of Hyun's power generators. According to every model we have, these minerals can't conduct electricity efficiently enough to power anything. Earth models, Hyun pointed out. Based on Earth materials and Earth physics. But we're not on Earth anymore. I had to throw out everything I knew and start learning from scratch. That evening, as they sat around his fire pit eating roasted hexapod steaks, Sora asked the question that had been bothering her all day. How do you stay sane, she said, alone on a world that's trying to kill you, with no contact with your own species for nearly a year? Most humans would have psychological problems. Hyun looked around at his settlement. Small creatures moved through the shadows, keeping watch and maintaining the complex systems he had built. Larger predators prowled the perimeter, respecting the boundaries he had established but ready to defend his territory from outside threats. I'm not alone, he said simply. I've got plenty of company. While Sora conducted her research, other forces were moving through the galaxy. The footage of Hyun's settlement had reached the Earth Embassy, where Admiral Ko Min-soo was having a very interesting conversation with his intelligence staff. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Ko said, reviewing the files on his desk. The Galactic Council sentenced one of our people to death by exile. Instead of dying, he's established a thriving colony on a world they consider uninhabitable, and now other species are starting to ask questions about human capabilities. That's correct, sir, his aide replied. Intelligence suggests several species are conducting secret research into human physiology. They want to understand how we can survive in environments that kill them. And what are they finding? That humans are far more adaptable than anyone realized. Our ability to survive in diverse environments, to eat almost anything, to adjust to extreme conditions, it's unique in known space. Every other species requires careful environmental controls to survive outside their homeworld. Admiral Ko leaned back in his chair, thinking. The humans had joined galactic civilization as junior partners, considered primitive because they came from what aliens called a chaotic world. But if humans could colonize worlds that other species couldn't even visit safely, that changed everything. Prepare a diplomatic mission, he ordered. I want to visit this Tartarus 7 myself, and contact the terraforming division. They'll want to see this. Meanwhile, on the alien homeworlds, panic was beginning to set in. The crystalline hegemony, whose members lived on worlds with perfect climate control, held emergency sessions to discuss what they were calling the human problem. Counselor Zeflin, one of the few progressive voices in the hegemony, tried to calm the fears. We're overreacting, she said to the assembled leaders. One human surviving on one hostile world doesn't mean anything significant. One human? Ambassador Nixavar stood up, his scales dark with agitation. The reports suggest he's not just surviving. He's thriving, building infrastructure, domesticating creatures that could destroy our battle mechs, and now other humans are expressing interest in joining him. This was true. Word of Hyun's success had reached Earth and the human colonies. Applications for exile to hostile worlds were increasing daily. Young humans, especially those working in dangerous professions, saw Tartarus 7 as an opportunity rather than a punishment. Dr. Cordan, an aquatic scientist from the water worlds, had been studying the implications. The data suggests that humans could colonize approximately 67% of the worlds in known space that we consider uninhabitable. This includes worlds rich in rare minerals and strategic resources. The room fell silent. Resources that other species couldn't safely harvest could be claimed by humans. Worlds that served as natural barriers between civilizations could become human settlements. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. "What do we do?" asked another council member. "We adapt," Zeppelin said firmly. "We offer alliance instead of opposition. The humans have shown they can survive where we cannot. But they still need technology, medicine, and trade goods that we can provide. Partnership is better than conflict." Back on Tartarus 7, Admiral Ko's diplomatic ship arrived to find a settlement that had grown beyond all expectations. What had started as one man's survival shelter had become a small town. Engineers and scientists who had gotten themselves exiled on various minor charges were arriving weekly, each bringing new skills and ideas. Hyun met the Admiral at the expanded spaceport, now busy with regular traffic from Earth and several allied species. The human was tanned and fit, looking healthier than most people Ko knew who lived on comfortable worlds. "Admiral Ko," Hyun said, offering a handshake. "Welcome to New Busan." "New Busan?" Ko asked, accepting the greeting. "We took a vote last month," Hyun explained, gesturing toward the bustling settlement. "Population is over 500 now and growing every week. We needed a proper name." Ko looked around in amazement. The settlement had proper buildings now, constructed from local materials in designs that worked with the hostile environment rather than against it. Gardens and workshops were scattered throughout, connected by covered walkways that protected against acid rain. Happy, healthy humans worked alongside domesticated alien creatures in a scene that looked impossible. "How many?" Ko asked. "How many what?" "How many worlds like this could humans colonize?" Hyun considered the question seriously. "According to our surveys, maybe 2/3 of all known worlds. The ones everyone else calls Deathworlds, we just call them challenging." That evening, at a dinner attended by human colonists and alien researchers, Ko asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "What comes next?" Hyun looked around the table at the faces of people who had found purpose and excitement in a place the galaxy had considered a tomb. "We grow," he said. "We learn. We show the galaxy that dangerous doesn't mean impossible, and maybe we change what people think it means to be human." Dr. Sora, who had extended her research mission indefinitely, raised her glass of purified rainwater in a toast. "To humanity's greatest strength," she said. "The ability to call anywhere home." As they drank, lightning danced harmlessly around the settlement's protective barriers, and alien predators settled down peacefully in their designated areas. Outside, the hostile world of Tartarus 7 continued its eternal cycles of violence and beauty. Inside the settlement, humans and their alien allies planned for a future where the impossible had become routine. 1 year after his exile, Park Hyun stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time he was not in chains. He wore the simple but elegant clothes of New Busan, made from processed local materials that shimmered with natural beauty. Behind him sat Mayor Lee Ji-won, elected leader of the colony that now boasted over 2,000 residents. The council chamber looked the same, but everything else had changed. Where once the floating platforms held aliens who looked down on him with disdain, now they watched him with something approaching fear mixed with desperate respect. Park Hyun of New Busan, Judge Velteran's crystal form seemed dimmer than before. "You have been invited to address this council regarding the developments on Tartarus 7. "Thank you, Your Honor," Hyun said calmly. "Though I think we should start with an apology." The room erupted in buzzing and clicking. Several council members activated their translation devices, unsure they had heard correctly. "An apology?" Ambassador Nixvar's voice was tight with controlled anger. "You should be grateful that the council showed mercy instead of executing you for your crimes." "Oh, I am grateful," Hyun replied with a smile. "You gave me the best gift anyone could have asked for. A whole world to call home. My apology is for not sending thank you cards sooner." Nixvar's scales darkened further, but Judge Velteran raised a hand for silence. "Please explain the current situation on Tartarus 7, the judge said. "With pleasure." Hyun activated a holographic display that showed aerial views of New Busan. The colony spread across several kilometers, with residential areas, industrial zones, and agricultural sectors all integrated into the natural landscape. Gardens bloomed under protective domes. Workshops produced goods from local materials. Children played in parks while domesticated. Hexapods served as patient guardians. Population is currently 2,047 humans and about 1,000 allied aliens from species who appreciate our approach to environmental integration, Hyun reported. We're completely self-sufficient for food and power. Our industrial output includes 17 rare minerals that can only be safely harvested from high-radiation worlds, plus various biological compounds with medical applications. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Those rare minerals were worth fortunes, but most species couldn't even land on worlds where they could be found. We've also established colonies on 12 other worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable, Mayor Jiwan added. Total human population on what you call Deathworlds is now over 15,000 and growing rapidly. Councillor Zeflin leaned forward. What do you want from the council? Nothing, Hyun said, which clearly surprised everyone. We don't need your permission to live where we choose. We don't need your protection on worlds where we're the apex predator. We don't need your technology when we can build better alternatives from local resources. Then why are you here? Nixvar demanded. Because you need us, Hyun replied simply, and we're willing to help. He changed the holographic display to show galactic trade routes and resource maps. 68% of known worlds are classified as uninhabitable by galactic standards. Most of them contain resources that your civilizations desperately need, but can't safely access. We can live on those worlds. We can harvest those resources. We can establish trade stations and rest stops in places where no one else can survive. Admiral Ko Minsu, who had been sitting quietly in the observer section, stood up. The human government is prepared to offer a formal alliance. We will establish colonies on worlds that provide strategic resources and tactical advantages for galactic defense. In return, we want full membership in the Galactic Council and recognition as a major civilization. The chamber fell silent. For centuries, humans had been junior partners, barely tolerated members of galactic society. Now they were proposing to become essential partners. What about oversight? Asked Dr. Cordon. How do we ensure that human colonies follow galactic law? Hyun laughed. You're welcome to visit any time. Set up embassies, establish trade missions, send scientists to study our methods, but you'll be living by our rules while you're there, because you'll need our protection to survive. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had once judged humans as reckless and dangerous would now depend on human hospitality to visit entire sectors of the galaxy. This is blackmail, Nixvar said. This is reality, Mayor Jiwan replied. We're not forcing you to accept our help. You can continue trying to access those resources with your own methods. How's that been working out for you? Everyone knew the answer. Dozens of alien expeditions to hostile worlds had failed catastrophically over the past year. While human colonies thrived in the same locations, Judge Veltaran spoke slowly, as if each word was being carefully weighed. What guarantees can you offer that human expansion will not become human dominance? The same guarantee that you offered us when you sentenced me to death, Hyun said. None at all. But here's the difference. We don't want to dominate you. We want to live on worlds where you can't survive anyway. We want to trade resources for technology and knowledge. We want to explore places that terrify you. Let us have the dangerous corners of the galaxy, and you can keep your safe, comfortable core worlds. Captain Kim Do-hyun, recently arrived with a new wave of colonists, stood up in the observer section. Your Honor, if I may. I've spent the last 6 months living on Kepler 442b, the world where this all started. The volcanic activity that seems so dangerous to evacuated populations, we've learned to harness it for geothermal power. The unstable geology, perfect for mining operations. What you see as chaos, we see as opportunity. And what about friendship? Asked Zeflin quietly. Alliance is one thing, but can our peoples truly coexist? Hyun smiled and gestured toward the observer section, where dozens of aliens sat alongside human representatives. Ask Engineer Kilmoth, who designed our new atmospheric processors. Ask Dr. Sora, who's writing the definitive guide to human survival techniques. Ask the Vrex delegation, who established their first successful mining operation using our methods. We're not conquering the galaxy, we're making it bigger. The council debated for hours while Hyun and his delegation waited patiently. Finally, Judge Veltaran called for order. The council will vote, the judge announced, all in favor of recognizing humanity as a major galactic civilization and accepting the proposed alliance terms. The vote was closer than Hyun had hoped, but wider than he had expected. 17 in favor, 11 against, 4 abstentions. It was enough. The motion passes, Judge Veltaran declared. Welcome to full membership in the Galactic Council. Representative Hyun of New Busan. As the session ended and the various delegations began to mingle, Ambassador Nixvar approached Hyun. The reptilian alien looked older and more tired than before. "I still think your species is dangerous," Nixvar said quietly. "We are," Hyun agreed. "But we're dangerous to the things that are trying to kill us, not to our friends. There's a difference." "Is there? Come visit New Busan sometime," Hyun offered. "Bring your family. Stay for a week. Experience what we built. Then decide whether we're dangerous to you or dangerous for you." Nixvar considered this. "Perhaps I will." Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their various worlds, Admiral Ko pulled Hyun aside. "You realize what you've done?" Ko said, "You've changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy." "I've changed the definition of power," Hyun corrected. "It's not about having the biggest guns or the most advanced technology. It's about being able to thrive anywhere, adapt to anything, and turn obstacles into opportunities." "And what comes next?" Hyun looked out through the station's viewing port at the stars beyond. Thousands of worlds waited out there. Worlds that other species considered too dangerous, too hostile, too impossible for civilization. "Next we go home," he said. "All of them." On the journey back to Tartarus 7, Arya floated beside Hyun as he reviewed the colony reports from other worlds. New settlements were being established monthly now, each one pushing the boundaries of what was considered habitable. "I have been analyzing the changes in galactic politics since your exile," Arya said. "The probability of human expansion being stopped by alien intervention is now less than 3%. "That's good," Hyun said absently, reading about a new colony that had successfully domesticated creatures that breathed methane and ate cattle. "But the probability of humans becoming the dominant species in the galaxy within 50 years is now over 90%, Arya continued. Hyun looked up from his reports. "Dominant? We don't want to dominate anyone." "You may not want to," Arya said, "but consider, you can live on worlds where others cannot survive. You can access resources others cannot reach. You can adapt to conditions others find impossible. Whether you intend it or not, you are becoming indispensable." Hyun thought about this as their ship approached Tartarus 7. Below them, New Busan sparkled with lights that had never existed before humans arrived. Children who had been born on a Deathworld played in parks where alien predators grazed peacefully. Gardens bloomed in acid rain and laughter echoed from chambers carved deep in hostile rock. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," he said finally. "Someone has to be willing to live in the dangerous places. Someone has to be able to call anywhere home, even if it makes other species dependent on you."